There is no such thing as a good or a bad feeling or emotion. All emotions are experiences. They're natural experiences that we have, and they're not to be judged as good or bad. They're just to be experienced.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 398 with guest Marc Brackett. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. And if you are on this side of the planet, I hope you're having a fantastic summer. Marc Brackett is here on the show. I heard him on Brené's podcast and instantly went and devoured his work and knew that I had to invite him on the show. I'm so happy that he said, yes, you're going to love this conversation and learn so much. I wanted to remind you that coming up on August 5th is a free webinar on self-confidence, which is also a preview of my new book that's coming out August 31st. So August 5th is the webinar, and it's all about taking up space. It is about shining bright and about asking for everything that you want. I have this methodology that I came up with. I wanted you to have something easy to walk away with, to implement in your regular everyday life, to learn how to have more self-confidence. I feel like we could all use a little bit more of that. The only requirement is that you pre-order my book. It doesn't matter if you get it on audiobook, ebook, regular book to hold in your hands. Just pre-order it and you can sign up for the webinar for free. And also there's a free workbook that goes along with the book. I ask over 250 questions in the book, and I was like, I need people to have a workbook and I don't want them to have to purchase it. So we made a beautiful one that coincides with the book, and it's yours free if you pre-order the book. So head on over to andreaowen.com/noise and you can see everything there. You can figure out where you're going to grab the book. You can get it anywhere books are sold. It doesn't matter. You don't have to get it on Amazon or anything like that. But yeah, that's your ticket to come to the webinar and interact with me for free. I cannot wait to see you. I'm really excited to do this. It's been so long since I've done anything live with y'all. And yes, there will be a recording if you can't make it. andreaowen.com/noise. So over the weekend, I was having a wonderful dinner with my husband, just the two of us. We were celebrating our 13-year wedding anniversary at the Cheesecake Factory. I love the Cheesecake Factory. I do. Anyway, we were talking about being married for 13 years and some of the things that we love about each other, that we love, reasons that we love being married to one another. And it just became this deeper conversation talking about the work that we've done together and individually. And my husband sort of half joked that he's grateful that I kind of dragged him kicking and screaming into quote unquote the work. And, you know, you've been around these parts long enough where you probably understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the work. It's not one specific thing. It's just our own stuff. It is taking responsibility and accountability for our behaviors and learning how to be our best self. That's really it in a nutshell. And I really thank the work that I started doing in 2014 around shame work. And you may have heard me say this before. If someone would have told me 10, 15 years ago that that's the work I would not only be doing in my personal life, but facilitating for others, I would have been like, y'all have got to be kidding me. Shame work? No, thank you. But it's been instrumental. It's been truly instrumental. I do take women privately through the process. I'm certified in Brené Brown's work, and it's a methodology called the Daring Way that teaches you shame resilience. It teaches you really fantastic and healthy coping mechanisms. So if you're interested in doing that, there's no obligation to fill out an application and see if it's a good fit for you. andreaowen.com/apply. And if that's not a great fit, it might be not where you're at quite yet. We do have other options. I have 2 lead coaches, Liz and Sabrina, Brené are standing by to work with women at really many, many capacities. So I would love for you to check it out and just see if it's a great fit. AndreaOwen.com/apply. Oh, and P.S., if you are somebody who is a coach or an aspiring author, aspiring podcaster, I also do consulting, as well as my lead coach, Liz, does that as well, where we can help you get through writing a book proposal process, getting your business off the ground. Just apply, and we'll let you know if it's a good fit. All right. So Marc Brackett, let me tell you a little bit about him for those of you that are new to him. Marc Brackett, PhD, is the founding director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and a professor in the Child Study Center at Yale University. His research focuses on the role of emotions and emotional intelligence in learning, decision-making, creativity, relationships, health, and both academic and workplace performance. His research has been featured in popular media outlets such as the New York Times, Good Morning America, and The Today Show. Marc is the author of Permission to Feel: Unlocking the Power of Emotions to Help Our Kids, Ourselves, and Our Society Thrive. So without further ado, here is Marc. Marc, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to talk to you because for several reasons. First and foremost, this is a topic very dear to my heart. I heard you on Brené Brown's podcast, and I'm a certified Daring Way facilitator. So I've trained with her and her senior faculty. And I'm sure like most of the people you have researched and maybe even talked to, and a lot of my listeners, I grew up in a family where we didn't talk about emotions. So I always joke that I have a lot of making up to do. So I'm excited to jump into this conversation. And I want to start by asking you, I mean, it's no secret that we live in a culture and society where men and women are encouraged and taught to hide or ignore, push aside their emotions. So can you start by sharing why it's essential to focus on feelings as a society and just as a whole person?
Sure. That's a big question. That might take the whole time.
It is. I know. It's a lot of question in one.
Well, it really starts off with, the title of my book, which is Permission to Feel. And that, I decided to call it Permission to Feel because I realized, now I'm 51, that most people don't have the permission to be their true, full feeling selves. Many people don't feel like they can express their true feelings. And so when you think about that, and that we're feelings creatures, it's like, so what happens to those feelings? They get suppressed, they get repressed, they get eaten, they get, swept away or under the rug, they get acted out, they get, poured down your throat with alcohol.
Yeah.
And so, the list goes on about how we've never had an emotion education, to support us in being comfortable talking about feelings. Even the simple question, maybe we can just even do this. Andrea, ask me how I'm feeling.
How are you feeling?
Fine.
Which I know is a lie because I asked you before we started recording and you said something else.
Right. But most people, what do we say? Fine. Okay, good, whatever.
Fine. Good. Great.
Now ask me again.
Marc, how are you feeling?
Gosh, Andrea, it's like this odd mixture of anxiety, frustration, despair, and overwhelm. See what happened? You froze.
Yeah. I'm like, well, yes, I have a lot of things I could say, but just like, oh, okay. That's a lot.
That's a lot. Good luck, Marc. A lot of us, especially during this pandemic, feel that way. I can tell you that I feel that way. And so the question is, when you ask me how I'm feeling, A, do I feel safe and comfortable to share how I truly feel? B, when I share what I feel, are you going to listen? How are you going to respond to that? And you can see how, this little question of, hey, how you feeling? Is actually much more complex. And because we haven't really had any training in the language of emotion, in the understanding of emotion, in the management of emotion, I think we just we moved on to like, how's it going? Right. And then you say, fine, and move on.
Yeah, it is one of those things. I personally, it really depends on the person. I'm fairly transparent about how I'm feeling, but I'm also very careful to then quickly tell them, but I'm okay, but I'm really okay. So if I am feeling overwhelmed and frustrated and nervous, I automatically feel like, okay, I don't want that person to feel like they have to take care of me. So I kind of sweep it under the rug after I'm honest about my feelings, if that makes sense. What role do emotions play in decision-making and things like workplace performance?
So I like to think about emotions as data or information. They're there as a system to give us stuff to think about, stuff to do. So when you're, having a strong feeling like of fear, it's saying there's danger, don't go there. When you're experiencing lots of joy, right, it's saying approach, approach, approach. And so emotions are information, they're data. And very importantly, I think that we have a society, going back to that first question about how you're feeling, that sees emotions as good or bad. And I want to dispel that notion. There is no such thing as a good or a bad feeling or emotion. All emotions are experiences. They're natural experiences that we have, and they're not to be judged as good or bad. They're just to be experienced. And so you think about decision making. A lot of people think, well, I'm a rational creature. Like, it was my conscious choice to say that or do that. But the truth is, your feelings are behind almost all of your judgments and decisions. So for example, for the teachers or the parents in the room who understand education, I did a study years ago where we asked people to think about a good day or a bad day. Pretty easy. Mm-hmm. And then we had them grade papers. And what we found was there was a 1 to 2 full grade difference in the way the educators evaluated the same exact essay. But when we asked them, do you believe that how you felt had any influence? 90% denied it.
Yeah.
So what does that tell us? It says how we feel kind of influences the way we see the world and the choices we make, but it happens outside of awareness. That attribution, of our feeling diminishes when we understand why we're having our feelings.
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. It's hard to find a great mentor who can help me level up. My dream mentor, Shonda Rhimes. So I was really excited when I heard she has a class on Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. I'm always looking for ways to be a better writer, so I took Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class. It helped me gain concrete technical advice, including structuring, the writing process, and with shows under her belt like Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton, it was so helpful. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. Masterclass.com/Andrea. So my children now are 11 and 13. And I knew that, I'm sure you hear this a lot, people who are going to talk about their childhoods preface it by saying, my parents were really great people. And
yeah, exactly. They love me, but
again, like I said, yeah, they love me, but didn't grow up in a family where they had the emotional intelligence. I always say, I was emotionally illiterate, and I knew going into parenthood that I wanted that to be different. And I was also going through my own stuff of how, I had to learn how. And what I've always told my children, and again, I'm not sure exactly where I heard this advice from, but it was very early on, is to tell them, all of your feelings are normal. There's no right or wrong. You're never wrong for feeling whatever it is that you feel, but what you're responsible for is your behavior. Therefore, it's not okay for you to be nasty or slam the door in my face or like those types of things that, children might do. And that's been enormously helpful for myself too, to take my own advice. But it's very simple. And that's one of the pieces of advice in parenting that I like to share, that, and please, like, you're the expert on this. Like, am I doing it right?
I think you're making a good point, but I want to talk about the reversal.
Okay.
Or the reverse, I should say, which is that you are responsible for the way you act in the world, right? So you think about it, it's kind of emotion, and then it's managing the feeling, and then it's behaving. However, I think for parents who are our listeners, one of the sayings that we have in the center is that behavior does not equal emotion. So what does that mean? Well, I'll give you my own example. When I was a kid, I was bullied in school, and I really was not doing well in school. I would come home, I hate you, I'm never going to school again. And what would happen is that my mother would get activated by that. Who do you think you are talking to me that way? Right? Go to your room. Wait till your father gets home. Classic 1970s parenting.
Yeah.
And so here I was feeling fear about going to school and getting bullied and hurt, and I'm being punished for it because my mom was so activated by my behavior that she couldn't deactivate her own feelings in order to really find out how I was feeling to help me regulate. And so I just think for parents, to me, I don't know what it is, but we're trained to just observe behavior. Oh, Mark is stomping his feet, he's angry. Jill is crying, she's sad. And the truth is, Jill might be crying because she's feeling shame, and Mark might be stomping his feet because he's afraid. And so don't make the mistake of what I'm going to say, attributing the emotion to the child. Your goal, I hope, is to be that compassionate, self-regulated parent who is an emotion scientist, who's curious and exploring to find out what's really going on, what's the story behind the behavior, what's the feeling behind the behavior, so that then you can help the child manage.
Or person. I mean, if someone's in a romantic relationship or friendship, even,
partner, friend,
I know my
colleague.
example. Yeah, I love that term, and I know this is from your book, and I would love for you to expand on that a little bit. And you say, I want everyone to become an emotion scientist. So can you say more a little bit about that?
Sure. So the emotion scientist is open to emotion, curious about emotion. Really wants to get specific about how they're feeling. They're not comfortable just saying fine or stressed. They want to say, well, am I anxious? Am I overwhelmed? Am I feeling too much pressure? Am I afraid? Because all of those are different experiences. It's funny. I just did a talk a little while ago for the government. I asked all these leaders in the government, what's the difference between anxiety, stress, fear, overwhelmed, and pressure? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, it wasn't a trick question, guys. And so why should a mom or dad know this about why they need to have this specificity? Because you have to name it to tame it. Because anxiety is about uncertainty. Fear is about danger. When you're overwhelmed, it just means you feel like you have no escape. And those are different experiences that need different supports. So my goal is to help parents become those curious emotion scientists who are kind of trying to get at what's underneath the behavior, to discover. Whereas the emotion judge, my father was kind of an emotion judge. Get over it. Like, get over it.
that was my mom.
Like, what are you crying about? Or my father, who was not very good at regulating his feelings, he'd often say things like, son, this is who I am. Just get used to it. And I remember thinking to myself, now I think, I'll get used to it. I'll, have 10 years of therapy and I'll get a doctorate in psychology and try to help other people learn these skills.
Well, that was actually another one of my very curious questions is how you came to this work. Like, were you a little boy and said, like, when I grow up, I want to, create the center of, and I'm forgetting the name of it now.
Emotional intelligence, yeah.
the Center for Emotional Intelligence at Yale. How did you come to this work?
Well, the real story is that I had a lot of trauma in my childhood that went untalked about until I was, just becoming a teenager. And there was one adult, that was my Uncle Marvin, who was my mother's brother, who was that compassionate emotion scientist. And he was the only person who ever really asked me how I felt, but did it in a way that made me want to answer. And he didn't say, toughen up, kid, get some grit, kid, be resilient. He just said, my goodness, what are we going to do together? How am I going to support you? Let's talk through this. Let's describe it. Let's find strategies. And so I argue, that my uncle gave me that permission to feel. And it really made a difference for me for middle school and high school, having my Uncle Marvin be my hero. And then I went to college and I was struggling with who I was as a person and what am I going to do with my life. And I'm giving you my entire life story here.
No, if you could see me right now, I've got my head in my hand and I'm just over here listening. I appreciate the transparency.
Then I'm in therapy because I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? I was teaching martial arts at the time and I was interested in psychology. I was interested in law. I was interested in everything. And then I had this epiphany when I was in therapy that everything I was kind of trying to figure out with my therapist and then everything I was reading, those self-help books that people on this podcast are interested in, they were all leading me to Uncle Marvin and the stuff that he did with me because he was a teacher and he was doing this stuff with kids. So I called my uncle and I'm like, can I pull you out of retirement and can we work on a curriculum together? And so that was my beginning, of doing this work. And
oh my gosh, how neat.
And that was in my early 20s. And then I realized, well, I don't really have any credibility. I'm a neurotic Jewish college graduate, who's going to want to listen to me? I'm kidding. But, I had no credibility. My uncle was retired already. So I'm like, I don't know. A 24-year-old neurotic karate teacher writes a curriculum on emotional intelligence with, a 65-year-old retired trumpet player / former middle school teacher. It doesn't seem like a recipe for publishing. And anyhow, so I went and I learned who were these experts and the theorists I applied, got into one of the programs, got my PhD studying emotional intelligence. And then throughout that process, I worked with my uncle on our curriculum. And then I got to Yale very fortunately after I graduated and then was able to work with the now president of Yale and started the center. And here we are many years later with a big team of
in 2021,
a big team who are trying to make a difference in the world.
That's amazing. This work is so important. And when you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you, now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone a father daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
It makes me curious about this younger generation. So again, I mentioned my children are younger, and especially my 11-year-old. And Gen Z seems to be very in touch with their feelings. And this is merely my opinion, and I'm very curious what you think about this. Sometimes to the point of over-identification, I feel like my daughter asks me, "Mom, do I have anxiety?" And I'm like, I didn't even know what that was until I was in my 20s, getting a diagnosis of it in my doctor's office.
Yeah.
But what is your, well, maybe you could tell us, what do you feel like is the difference between emotional regulation and emotional intelligence, and kind of going overboard with it? Or can you go overboard?
So the way I like to think about it, right? The emotion scientist uses their emotions wisely to achieve well-being, to build and maintain healthy relationships, to have good physical and mental health, to make good decisions, to, achieve goals and dreams in life. And so those are my criterion. And, so when you think about the things that we do that are not helpful, yelling, screaming, eating too much junk food, denying, acting out, all right, so does that help you have well-being? Does it help you build and maintain healthy relationships? Well, not really. All right, then what works? Well, the first, from my perspective, is you got to give yourself the permission to feel. The second is that you have to become the emotion scientist. The third is you got to learn the skills of recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, regulating emotion. And then, all right, so what's the strategies? Well, you got to learn how to deactivate, right? Because when you're really kind of been triggered, or you're feeling a strong, intense emotion, you can't think clearly. You can't problem solve. Oh, so that's where breathing exercises and mindfulness comes in. But that's not going to solve the world's problems, right? You've got to be able to problem solve, and you've got to be able to maybe shift your thinking. Like, for example, during the pandemic, a lot of catastrophic thinking, a lot of self-criticism. Well, how do you go from self-criticism to self-compassion? How do you go from blaming to reframing or reappraising? And so what I feel strongly about is that we make these strategies for healthy emotion regulation available to parents and to kids from very, very, early on. And then it becomes developmental, right? So, think about it. When you're in kindergarten, Mark, you can do this. I have a niece who, I'll never forget this. She was 7 at the time, and she had a little bit of a speech, a little bit of a lisp. And she was so afraid, but she wanted to be in the school play in 2nd grade. But Uncle Mark, I'm afraid they're going to get make fun of me. And so she didn't have strategies. Like I didn't. Did you have an emotion coach growing up in your house?
No. Immediately no.
And so I'm like, well, Uncle Mark's going to take over Uncle Marvin for Esme. And so I said, what can we say to ourselves when we have these feelings, when you get those butterflies in your stomach, and when you start thinking, I can't do this, what can you say to yourself? And we worked together for, a while to list things that she could say to herself that really were her ideas.
Yeah.
Long story short is she does a school play. She's so excited. She does a great job. And she jumps off the stage. Uncle Mark, I use my strategies. And I said, well, which one did you use today? And she goes, well, when I got nervous, I took my deep breath. And I said to myself, Esme, face your fears. And I think, oh my gosh, think about that. A 7-year-old having that level of sophistication to manage her emotions. I don't even want to begin to tell you where my brain was at 7 years old. And
same.
So it's possible, but we, the people who are raising and teaching kids, have to learn it first.
Yeah, that made me a little emotional for a second. And it doesn't happen to me very often on this show. So I appreciate your story and God bless your niece. I want to talk about, before I let you go, I want to talk about your app.
Sure.
The Mood Meter app. And just so I'm clear, was this originally made for children or is it for everyone?
No, actually the app was originally made for adults.
Okay, good. Because I downloaded it and I think it's amazing. And I want everyone to both get your book and this app, because before you start talking about it, what I have found in my conversations with clients and the women that listen to this show is that many times, and I'm sure that you've heard this before, we grow up and kind of don't know what it is that we're feeling and can't point to it because we've spent so many years, like you were saying, offloading or numbing out or dismissing or feeling like our feelings were wrong. We don't know what they are. And so then it's be like, how do I feel my feelings if I don't even know what they are in the moment? Mm-hmm. So that's why one of the reasons I was so excited to see your app. So can you tell us about that?
So the Mood Meter tool is built in a lot of science. And my colleague, David Caruso, worked on the first version of the Mood Meter. And then we applied it to our work in schools and with families. And another colleague of mine, Robin, and I had the opportunity to work with a tech company to build the app. And actually, we're going to be updating the app in the next 4 months, and it's going to blow your mind with the features it's going to have. So just stay tuned. My thinking about technology is that you want to use it when it can be helpful. And so it's hard to keep track of your feelings, like, right? How do you do that? How do you keep track of, you're going to write a piece of paper every day and like put it on your mirror in your bed? It doesn't make sense. So why not build a tool that can help people, A, build their vocabulary, and B, start unpacking the reasons for their feelings, and C, learn strategies to help them regulate their feelings, and D, learn, about their data in aggregate. So what I mean by that is, after you use the tool for, let's say, a couple of weeks, you can hit your report and you think, so where have I been living on this Mood Meter? And by the way, the Mood Meter is this tool that has 4 colors, yellow, red, blue, and green. The yellow is high energy, pleasant feelings like happy, excited, ecstatic, and cheerful and hopeful. The red is high energy, unpleasant feelings, which are, frustrated and overwhelmed and anxious and angry. The blue is down, disappointed, hopeless, despair, sadness. And the green is calm, content, peaceful, tranquil. And so there's these 100 words that are in these 4 colors. And so it's nice to know, like, wow, over the last 2 weeks, I've been 75% in the red and the blue.
Yeah.
Like, well, how's that impacting my well-being? I'm repetitive here, right? My relationships, my decision-making, my performance. What do I need to do differently to support myself to experience a greater balance of pleasant to unpleasant emotions? So that's why that we have the tool, and it's been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times, and people really love it.
And it has really good ratings on, I'm looking at the Apple Store. I love this so much. I feel like I want to marry it. It's so exciting because, okay, let me back up. Andrea's getting excited over here. So I got sober in 2011. I was a very high functioning, I identify as an alcoholic. I had a very high bottom. No one even knew. I got out early. A couple of years before that, I was in recovery from pretty severe codependence and love addiction. So I know what it's like to run away from your feelings and your problems. So for me, I always tell people, like, it was never the wine. It was never the relationship. It was never the control. It was all about my feelings, or, for more specifically, trying to figure out how to run away from them. And I work with a decent amount of women who are also struggling with their relationship with alcohol, for instance. And I keep telling them the quantity doesn't matter. The symptom doesn't really matter. What's underneath all this that we're trying to uncover is where are you at with your emotions? And I love this, that they can keep track of it and really look in pretty colors and take inventory of where they're at, because you can't help yourself if you don't know how you're feeling.
There you go. You're hired.
I'm on track. Thank you, Marc. I am so glad to talk to you. So again, everyone, the book is Permission to Feel, Unlocking the Power of Emotions to Help Our Kids, Ourselves, and Our Society. That link will be in the show notes, along with a link to the app. And before you go, is there anything that you missed that you wanted to circle back with and say, the website you want to send people to, anything at all?
Sure. I mean, my website has access to the apps, my book, free articles. I even have a virtual book club that people can join.
I saw that. Is that ongoing?
It goes we do it every 6 weeks, a couple times a year.
Okay.
So we're in week 2 right now. But so it's just Marc with a C, Marc, Brackett, BRACKETT.com, and you can just learn all about our work. And so I just would end by saying, when you understand the science of emotion and how critical the skills of emotional intelligence are for our children's health and performance and success and happiness in life, it really becomes our moral obligation as the parents and teachers, who are raising kids, to be the best possible role models for them. And so I hope people will just take this work seriously and strive to be that emotion scientist, and so that their children's dreams can come true.
Let's end on that. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. And listeners, thank you so much for being here as well. You know how grateful I am for your time. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye, everyone.
Oh, hey, everybody. It's us, Blair and Molly, your old pals from Toddler Purgatory. Two moms who are also actors, who are also creative beings, who sometimes feel stuck. And this is our new podcast, Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. What happens when your creative spark just seems to disappear? Gone. Poof. Bye. See ya. What happens when life gets in the way of your creativity instead of nourishing it? That's what happened to Molly and me. We felt like the thing that drove us creatively stopped working, and impending doom had in fact impended. Totally. So we decided to do something about it. And that was steal ideas about getting unstuck from the most creative people we can find. We talk to guests about how to break through the mucky, gluey, sticky wall that can get between you and your creativity. We hear about their journeys, their successes, their challenges, and even their bougie coffee shop orders. And we're not just talking Bob Ross type paint on paper artists here, though we talk to them too. We're talking to actors, creative directors, dancers, and people who are working hard to be their best creative selves in a world that can sometimes feel real uncreative. We all have something to teach each other, so let's steal their ideas together. Join us, won't you, as we deep dive into how to unstick ourselves from the life gunk that can get in the way of our creative freedom. Pandemics, school calendars, world events, lack of sleep. Oh, get out of their life gunk. And let's get back to your best creative self. Subscribe to Unsticking It with Blair and Molly. You're not going to want to miss an episode. Unsticking It with Blair and Molly, because sometimes life sucks.